Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Hannah. Be sure to click that subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up. Today I am filming my last video in my apartment here in Athens, which is really crazy. So I feel like it's only fitting for me to film a sit-down video and talk to you guys about my experience as a student at the University of Georgia and just kind of give some advice to rising freshmen. So basically, I'll kind of just go through each year for me and just sort of give a rundown as to what it was like, and then at the end of this video I have just like 5 pieces of advice that I feel like are pieces of advice I wish I had as a rising freshman, and these are just sort of things that I would like to tell my younger self. I guess basically I knew that I wanted to go to the University of Georgia probably about my sophomore or junior year of high school. Obviously it's like I'm lucky to live in the state of Georgia, so I get in-state tuition. Georgia also has this thing called the HOPE or Zell scholarship, which really helps a lot when it comes to in-state tuition if you have the academics to qualify for one of those in-state scholarships. So UGA is a fantastic school, and I was also lucky enough in the sense to be able to go to an in-state school that also had a program that I was really interested in majoring in. UGA, I don't know what their ranking is at the moment, but at the time I was applying to schools my senior year of high school, UGA ranked in the top 10 for fashion merchandising programs for public schools in the country. So that's really awesome. And yeah, I just knew at first I did not think that I wanted to go to UGA when I was like a freshman, because I thought that I was going to go to an art school and major in fashion design. And then when I started to look at the cost of colleges,
I just knew that I was not going to be able to afford to go to an art school.
So I kind of had to completely adjust my expectations and really come to terms with the fact that I needed to look at attending a public state school. So I applied to UGA, a couple other smaller public schools in the state of Georgia, and then I applied to Auburn, Alabama, and the University of South Carolina. So UGA was my top pick. I just knew that I wanted to go there because I loved Athens as a city. They had a great fashion merchandising program, like I said, and it just felt like the best fit for me. I was lucky enough to get accepted into UGA early admission, so I got accepted, I think, around November of my senior year, so very early on, which was really great. I actually got accepted early to all of the schools that I applied to, so it gave me a lot of time to really make my decision. But I knew the second that I got accepted into UGA, that was where I was ultimately going to be going. So a lot of people from my high school typically go to UGA. I went to not a big public school, but it was definitely decent in size. So I believe the year that I graduated, there were about 40 kids going to UGA along with myself. I was close with some of the people that were going. None of them were my, absolute best friends by any means. So because I didn't feel super close to a lot of the people going to UGA with me, I kind of saw this as an opportunity for me to start over. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with staying friends with your friends from high school. I think it's really amazing if that's what you choose to do. But for me, I didn't have the absolute best time in high school, and I just really saw college as an opportunity for me to kind of like reinvent myself and start over. And I had just gotten out of a relationship 2 weeks before I was coming to school, so that was kind of really a push forward for me to just start fresh, start new, and just sort of make a whole new group of friends and make a whole new life for myself in Athens. With that being said, I decided that I wanted to rush a sorority, and I'm gonna film a completely separate video on my experience rushing at UGA because that's just a whole nother topic in itself. But basically I had a very hard time going through recruitment. I went in there and put my best foot forward, and I really did think that, you know, as long as I was just a nice, you know, friendly person, that I would make it far, and I was
very wrong.
I definitely do think that it is important to be yourself and, you know, to be just who you are, be friendly, be kind. You know, rush is a time for you to meet a lot of people very quickly, and it can definitely feel overwhelming, but there are definitely, you know, some stereotypes that are associated with each different sorority here. I know that's basically the case at every school that has Greek life, and I wasn't really aware of that. Basically, I thought that if I didn't get into a sorority, that I wasn't gonna have any friends. So I made it all the way up until the last day of recruitment. I prefed 3 houses. I ended up only putting 2 houses down because I just didn't feel like the third one was the right fit for me at all. And unfortunately, like midnight, night before bid day, I got dropped from recruitment altogether, and I didn't get picked up from any houses. So that was definitely really hard, and it was not the way that I wanted to start my freshman year. Kind of tainted my thoughts on Greek life and just my thoughts of college overall, because I kind of associated Greek life to so much of what college was supposed to be. So that was really difficult. The first like week of school was really hard. I would go out and like try and meet people, and everyone would constantly be like, oh, what sorority are you in? What sorority are you in? And I just felt so embarrassed to say that I wasn't in one, as if it was an insult to me as a person. So yeah, it was really hard, I feel like, for me to want to put myself out there, because I was just like really disappointed and embarrassed, and I just didn't really know where my place was. And so actually, I think like 4 days after bid day, I ended up getting a snap bid. I'll go into the details about all of this in my recruitment video, but basically a snap bid is kind of just a late bid from a sorority that doesn't meet their quota for that year. So I ended up getting a snap bid from Gamma Phi Beta, and I stayed in Gamma Phi for all 4 years of college. That was actually one of Gamma Phi was actually one of the sororities that I ended up prefing, so I went all the way with them. I just didn't get a bid the first time around, but I was really happy to have gotten a bid at all, even if it was late. So getting to kind of join in on that was really important to me, and it really meant a lot to me. And so I kind of just threw myself in head first, went to all of the socials, went to all of the date nights, went to all of the, you know, parties, sort of everything that you could possibly think of. I gave 110% because I was super committed to the idea of making friends, hopefully meeting a guy who knew, or, you know, like I had literally no idea what to expect. I just kind of had this idea of what college was supposed to be in my head, and I felt like that was what I was trying to make happen for myself. So yeah, I mean, it was really fun. I definitely did meet a lot of people. I will say that's probably one of the best parts when it comes to Greek life, is the fact that you do sort of make a lot of friends really early on in college. So that can definitely help you out a lot. I had one of my friends from my hometown who I grew up with. Her name is Lily. I'm still really good friends with her today. She actually got a bid from Gamma Phi, and so she was kind of like the first friend that I had going into it, and we did a lot together. But besides Lily, I didn't really have a lot of super close friends in their sorority my first semester. And then of course there was like Big Little, and I ended up getting this amazing Big and this amazing family, and that just completely changed my entire experience my freshman year in the best way possible. So my Big Charlie, my Grand Big Allie, and my great Grand Big Lana. Charlie was a sophomore, Allie was a junior, and Lana was a senior. We did literally everything together. the second semester of my freshman year, I basically lived with Allie and Lana, and they were just amazing. I feel like I learned so much from them, and I was going through a really hard time. The breakup, like I mentioned, I went through a breakup 2 weeks before I moved to Athens, and that kind of had a trickling effect for the majority of my freshman year, and I was going through a really hard time, but it meant a lot having them there for me, especially because they're older than me, and just because I felt like they gave me a lot of really good advice. I definitely went through, I would say, my crazy years, my freshman and sophomore year. I kind of was just really boy crazy, and I thought that the best way for me to get over the breakup was for me to hop back into another relationship. I did not really know how to be single or what that was supposed to look like for me, and I kind of overall just felt like freshman year felt like one big identity crisis. That's not to say that it was bad, but it was really hard. I feel like I was still just so in love with my ex-boyfriend, and I spent a lot of time trying to get him back, trying to repair our relationship, and I felt like I was more so focused on him when I needed to be more focused on myself and making a life for me in Athens. And I think that's kind of why when I look back freshman year, it wasn't the best year for me by any means, because I just wasn't really putting myself first, and I feel like I missed out on a lot of opportunities. I missed out on just really having fun and enjoying myself, because even when I would go out, I would constantly be texting my ex, trying to see what he was doing, and I just felt so preoccupied by him that it was really hard for me to sort of see this for what it was. So that was kind of freshman year. In terms of school and grades, I definitely did not do well my freshman year. I didn't do horribly, but I definitely should have done better than how I did. But it's definitely an adjustment coming from high school to college, where everything is kind of laid out for you in high school, and then you go to college and all of the responsibility falls back on you. My grades suffered, and kind of ended my freshman year in a weird place, and I kind of felt this sense of pressure that, you know, I really need to go back sophomore year and get my act together. But I will say, looking back on my freshman year, I think it taught me so much about myself, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. You know, there were a lot of bad times, but in those moments I probably learned the most about myself as a person. And then obviously the good times I'm super grateful for. Basically, the summer after my freshman year was probably the hardest time for me ever. I think it was just really difficult because it was my first time really spending that much time at home since I went off to school. Basically, my parents left me alone, and I was in this like weird phase where I would literally get like anxiety attacks just at the thought of being by myself. At the time, I didn't know that I was battling a really bad case of depression and anxiety. I just knew that I could not be left alone because I was scared as to what would happen if I were to be left alone. So when my parents went out of town, I basically was driving every single day back and forth between Athens and Decatur, and then at night at Decatur I would have a bunch of people over and try and just sort of fill this void. But obviously it wasn't working because it was an intrinsic issue that I was trying to solve with a lot of extrinsic factors, and it basically took me realizing that I needed to go back to seeing a therapist and really talk to my parents about what was going on for me to like get the help that I needed. So that sort of goes into how sophomore year went for me. I would say that out of all 4 years, sophomore year for me was the hardest, just because I was having to take medication for anxiety and depression while also trying to bring my grades back up, and while also trying to convey to everyone around me that I was still this like happy-go-lucky girl, and I really did not feel that way at all. So it was really hard. I feel like for the first 2 years I was really caught up in what everyone thought about me, and I just felt this like overwhelming desire to sort of make it seem like I had everything together and that I was, you know, just this like perfect cookie cutter sorority girl. I did not want to admit that I was having the, you know, mental problems that I was having and that I needed, and that I was having to get help. And because of that, like, my grades just suffered even more, because I wasn't honest about what was going on with myself and with those around me. And a lot of people just completely saw this situation for something that it wasn't, and it just was just this whole mix of an issue that basically didn't get better until I admitted to my friends what was going on. When I admitted that I was battling depression, anxiety, and that I was actually getting help, I felt like it brought me so much closer to a lot of people in my life at the time, and I felt like for once I was actually getting people to see me for the person that I was. And so once I kind of was able to admit to myself and to those around me what was going on, it really made me feel like I had more of a support system, and I sort of saw Athens as more of a home. I was living in the sorority house at the time, so that definitely added in a completely other factor. I had a great experience living in my sorority house. If you have the option to, I highly recommend it, because it's a great opportunity for you to get closer to a lot of the girls in your pledge class, and I got along really well with my roommate. We lived in a 2-person room, so that was really great, but unfortunately my grades still continued to suffer. And during this whole time there was a lot of gossip going around about me, a lot of people talking behind my back and really just passing judgment when I felt like they just didn't know me. And so that was, I think, a really big learning experience for me. It taught me that, you know, people are going to talk regardless of the fact, regardless of whether or not they know you super well. So it's really just important to know, you know, who you are, and to know that those who are close to you really do know the full story, and to not really take it personally when people are just kind of talking bad about you, because let's be honest, people love to gossip, unfortunately. But yeah, it was hard for me because I looked up to a lot of girls in my sorority, and that's kind of when I realized that you know, these people were not the people that I thought they were, because during a time where I needed a lot of support, I got a lot of criticism. It was a lot of tough love, and honestly it taught me a lot. I think I became a lot stronger of a person because of it. So I basically did a complete 180 spring of my sophomore year. So I actually did end up really improving my grades the spring of my sophomore year. And I mean, it wasn't where I wanted it to be, but it was still a step in the right direction. And then the summer after my sophomore year, I actually had the great opportunity to study abroad, which was truly life-changing. I had never been out of the country, so I actually spent 6 weeks studying abroad in London, and I also got to travel to Paris and Prague, which was incredible. I got to intern for this company called Style Doctors while I was in London. So it was a really great program because it was a study abroad, but it was also an opportunity for students in the program to do an international internship. So I got to actually work with a stylist in London, and I got to work on a lot of amazing projects and really sort of see that side of the fashion industry, and that was the first time I had really gotten any experience like that. So not only was I getting to live in London and get to explore and see, you know, this amazing city, I was actually getting to like work and do something that, you know, I've always wanted to do. So that really just made me sort of find value in myself in a weird way. I feel like up until that point, I just kind of felt like I was in no man's land, and with everything that I was going through with the depression and the anxiety, it really just kind of made me feel worthless. I spent a lot of time just not really feeling proud of myself, and I constantly felt like I was failing. But having that opportunity to sort of you know, do what I love and really put my best foot forward proved to me that grades don't define a person, and if you are someone who is dedicated and has a strong work ethic, then in my opinion that speaks volumes. So I really busted my butt during that internship, and I am still really close with the stylist that I worked with, and you know, we've continued to keep in touch throughout the years, and I learned a lot from her. And so I came back my junior year with this completely different perspective. I got to move into my own apartment, and I kind of just felt like more of my own person, and I felt like I learned so much in London about myself, and I felt like I had a way better head on my shoulders. So junior year, things definitely, I think, turned around for me. I would say my first 2 years of college were the hardest, but I would say these last 2 years were the best years for me, just because I started to do a lot better in school. I didn't have, you know, as much of an issue with my depression. I stopped having anxiety attacks, and I kind of just completely cut ties with a lot of people that were bringing me down. I held on to a lot of people from my past, people that were just taking advantage of me, people that really did not care about my well-being, and obviously that took a really big toll on me, both mentally and physically. I put a lot more effort into building my friendships here, and I ultimately just felt a lot happier because of that. So junior year for me was really great because I just felt like more of an adult. I felt like I had more responsibility. I got a part-time job at this boutique downtown that I'd always wanted to work at, and life just felt like it was sort of falling into place. I feel like my mood overall just really changed. I stopped feeling like such a failure, and I started to sort of celebrate the small things and the small accomplishments that you know, were happening in my life at that time. I felt more comfortable being alone. I didn't feel so scared about my future. I felt like I had more hope and more promise my junior year, and that really just translated into me getting my internship in New York City the summer after my junior year. That, I think, was probably the best experience I had in college, because that is really just a time where I learned the most about myself. I moved into an apartment with 3 other roommates that were complete strangers to me, working for a company that I really didn't know much about. I had never spent that much time in New York City up until my internship, and I kind of was just doing this all on my own. So I went from being too afraid to even be left alone in my apartment back home to now moving to this city for 3 months and doing everything on my own. I kind of just threw myself into the deep end and hoped that I was going to swim, and luckily I did. I really flourished in that environment, I would say, and I mean, I busted my butt, but it was worth it. And at this point, I kind of was getting to really close with a lot of girls that I worked with at my part-time job. One of my friends, Amanda, was actually in Gamma Phi with me. She originally went to Auburn but then reaffiliated, and Amanda helped me get this part-time job at the boutique. And then I ultimately was introduced to a few other girls, and we kind of just like built this group and this like really strong friendship. And I would say that summer after my junior year is really when it started to build. And then I came into my senior year really just feeling like I had a very strong foundation. I've always been the kind of person where I'll get to that point eventually where I feel this sense of security, but it really takes me a while to get there. So I really don't feel like I felt super secure with, you know, my friendships or with myself until my senior year, after I had that experience in New York City. But when I came back, one of my best friends, Shayla, ended up moving into the apartment with me, and that just completely changed my world in the best way possible. And I got super close with her, along with a lot of the other girls that we worked with. And I can honestly say that Jessica, Cara, Amanda, and Shayla just completely, like, I can't even put into words how much they mean to me and how much they just changed my life for the better. Like, they really did just make senior year incredible, even with everything with the pandemic and, you know, with not getting to finish out my senior year on campus. None of that really mattered to me because I still feel like I gained friends for life, and you know, they have just been there for me through so much that I've had to go through these past few months. Really getting to build that friendship my senior year is what made probably senior year the best year for me, which is really crazy to think about because this year has just been filled with so much uncertainty. But I think what has made it so great is feeling like I just have a great group of girlfriends, and these are friends that I genuinely feel like I'm gonna have for the rest of my life, and I've never had something like that before. I really only have one friend from my high school who I'm still super close with, and other than that I don't talk to a lot of people from my hometown. So now feeling like I've sort of found a group and like feeling like I belong and that, you know, I'm actually like wanted and loved, it's really just a great feeling. And I know that sounds like super sappy, but that's something I never really had much before. So getting to feel that now is just really great. Yeah, I think that's kind of just like my spiel. That was a lot, but I am truly so grateful for my time here at UGA. If you're someone who knew me freshman year and you know me now, I think you can really attest to the fact that I have grown a lot and that I am a completely different person, and I'm really happy about that. Not to say that I didn't like the person that I was when, you know, I started here as a freshman, but I feel like I learned so much more than what you can learn in a classroom alone. I feel like I learned so much about being independent, so much about myself, about relationships with, you know, guys and with friends, and I'm really grateful for that. I think that these past 4 years taught me more about myself than anything, and I'm really just excited for my future and to see how I'm going to continue to grow. And I would not trade my time here for anything. I love Athens as a city. I think that it is a great place to go to school, just from the downtown life to the history to being able to go to an SEC school. It kind of just gave me everything that I wanted. The fashion merchandising program here taught me so much, and I feel like I definitely learned the skills that I need to succeed in having a career in the fashion industry, hopefully sooner rather than later. So I'm just going to, I guess, run down a few tips that I would share with rising freshmen. The number one tip, well, not the number one, but I would say the first tip I have to share is if you choose to rush, great. I actually recommend going through recruitment if you feel like that's the right choice for you, but just know that being in a sorority is not everything, and it does not define you as a person. I loved my time in Gamma Phi. It gave me so many amazing friendships, so many fun nights downtown, and just great opportunities in general, but I feel like for the first 2 years, I saw myself as Hannah Boykin, a Gamma Phi, but now I just see myself as Hannah. So know that, you know, while it feels like the end all be all, it's not everything, and it's not gonna define you as a person. You really kind of have to find that in yourself. So my second piece of advice is don't be afraid to branch out. Say yes more than you say no. I know that's kind of a cliche, and I feel like that is a given, but if you're someone who is shy, or if you're someone who's scared of putting yourself out there, I know that I was at the beginning of college, know that everyone feels that. Every freshman feels scared of rejection. Every freshman feels scared of putting themselves out there, but if you say yes, who knows where that could possibly lead. So, you know, say yes to having lunch with someone that you don't know, say yes to going on a date night with a guy that your friend is setting you up with. I mean, you really have no idea where things are gonna go. So it's better to take the opportunity and say that you gave it a shot, rather than just saying that you turned down the opportunity to begin with. My third piece of advice is to get involved on campus. This is something that I wish that I did a lot earlier on. For me, I put so much of my energy into my sorority and into Greek life. I really didn't get involved in a lot of other clubs or extracurriculars, but I wish that I did, because I think that it would have introduced me to a lot more people, and it would have been a lot easier for me to have made friends, you know, outside of my sorority. You know, obviously you can make friends in your classes, but I feel like if you get involved in a club or in an intramural sport or something like that, it just is opening up even more doors. So definitely get involved. I waited until probably about my sophomore, junior year to really join clubs and stuff, and I wish that I had done that a lot earlier on. My fourth piece of advice is definitely go out, have fun, enjoy downtown, but it is really important to find a good sort of work-life balance early on in college. I'm still learning what a good work-life balance means for me, especially now as I am sort of trying to pursue a full-time job. But, you know, just know not doing super well your freshman year in your classes is typical, but it is really important that you do find a good balance when it comes to going out, studying, all of that. Just know, from me personally, it is really important to try, because take it from someone who up until her senior year was still trying to make up for mistakes she made freshman and sophomore year. It really is important to find that balance and just you know, try hard in school early on, and you'll thank yourself later. My fifth piece of advice, though, to sort of play off of that, is know that your grades do not define you. Do well. It will save you a lot of stress and a lot of sleepless nights if you do, but also know that your grades do not define you as a person. And I think that it shows more about you if you're able to say that you work really hard and that you've had a lot of experience. So just me personally, as someone who you know, majored in fashion merchandising and is trying to get into the fashion industry, I can honestly say that no one has ever asked me about my GPA. Everyone just wants to know about the experience that I've had in the industry and about the kind of person that I am and what my work ethic looks like. So take pride in the work that you do, and just know that if you're someone who, you know, is not an A+ student, that's fine. It doesn't mean that you're gonna fail, but just really work hard, get a part-time job early on, and just sort of use every chance you get to really gain experience, and that will help you a lot. So those are just 5 quick pieces of advice. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video wasn't super long, and I hope you guys found it you know, entertaining and useful. So stay tuned for my next video, and I will see you guys again soon.